on
Barnaby,
radio.
you're an absolute joke, Barnaby. You get 5 minutes on the radio in the news camera. I'm going off because you sound like an insensitive wanker. That's what you sound like, Barnaby. You're a joke. You're a disgrace.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And that was Kyle Sandilands, one-time king of Sydney FM radio, at his delightful best, laying into Agriculture Minister Barnaby Joyce back in May. After which the Minister's office complained to the radio watchdog, the ACMA, protesting that he had been subjected to
a stream of invective, which included Mr Sandilands describing Mr Joyce variously as a cock and a wanker. Mr Joyce was also called a loser, an idiot, a fool, a disgrace, an absolute joke and a ponce.
Classy stuff. And what was the row about? Well, it was Johnny Depp's pet dogs, Pistol and Boo, who had been smuggled into Australia on Johnny's private jet and whom the Minister had threatened to deport, or even worse, put down. And this had so outraged Kyle that the pooch lover had savaged the Minister and then slammed down the phone.
Oh, you're a up on Barnaby. What a wanker. See you later. What a loser.
Well, we haven't had an interview.
What a loser. What a joke.
Well, that was heated.
Oh, you're a funny little man.
Heated.
What an idiot. Well, the guy's a fool.
Anyway.
Just a gerbil of a thing.
There's no need for that.
So, what did the watchdog make of all that abuse? Well, surprise, surprise, it said it was fine.
The phrases used by Mr Sandilands, while discourteous in terms of the conventions for political address, were not so threatening, abusive, vulgar or contemptuous that they were not suitable for broadcast.
Really? A ponce, joke, loser, idiot? It's okay to say that to a government minister? I can't imagine the ABC getting away with that. And what about wanker? Surely that's too much. But not on Kyle and Jackie O, because the ACMA concluded that Mr Joyce was not being called a masturbator, yes, seriously, and that
the programme's regular listeners would understand the word is used in the Australian vernacular.
Well, bugger me, as they say. In the ACMA's opinion, Kyle's foul-mouthed rant did not fail the decency test because it did not breach prevailing community standards about how we address our politicians, and would not have shocked the programme's listeners. So, what does the Minister think of this bizarre decision? Well, he is shocked. And he told Media Watch he's particularly upset at being called a gerbil.
A gerbil is a male sexual device that came into popular culture in the 1980s. Of all the cornucopia of rodents, mammals and marsupials running around, Mr Sandilands chose to describe me as a gerbil. He knew exactly what he was saying, and he picked that animal for a special reason. It is without dispute totally beyond the pale.
Not on the Kyle and Jackie O show, it's not. But don't just blame the watchdog, blame those who run Kiss FM, who refused to apologise to the Minister and let this foul-mouthed bully get away with it. Because if that is acceptable behaviour, it's because they have allowed it to become so. But now, to newspapers, where there's more bad news for journalists and readers in regional New South Wales.
69 full-time jobs across the Hunter will go at Fairfax mastheads. 46 of those will be straight from the newsroom. More than half of the cuts will come from the Newcastle Herald, which has already had jobs slashed in recent years.
Over the years, the Newcastle Herald has won a stack of awards, including a Gold Walkley for exposing sexual abuse in the Catholic Church. But that has not saved the paper from coming under the knife. And according to Rosemary Milsom, who's a journalist and union rep on the Herald, it's being hit harder than other Fairfax mastheads in New South Wales and Victoria, which have already been slashed.
All the other papers have averaged around 50%, and we're looking at a cut of 2/3 of our newsroom.
The cuts proposed at the Newcastle Herald will scrap the paper's entire features department. 5 of the Herald's 9 photographers will also be made redundant, so we'll be seeing fewer wonderful photos like these. And the number of sports reporters will be halved to 5, so we'll be less likely to see Walkley Award-winning stories like these about Nathan Tinkler's demise as owner of the Knights. In total, the Herald's editorial staff will be hacked back from 61 to 24, and veteran journalist and union rep Ian Kirkwood fears this will have a huge impact.
We're going from 110 staff a few years ago to 24, and I just don't think you can expect the paper to realistically be the same. Our fear is that it won't have the relevance to readers anymore.
The Herald will also be adopting the News Now system, which has already been introduced at papers like the Border Mail, Ballarat Courier and Illawarra Mercury. And one of the main changes is the paper will be produced much earlier in the day. So breaking news will be hard to get in. At the moment, the Herald's front page can be redesigned as late as 10 p.m. In future, according to journalists, although Fairfax denies this, they'll be trying to lock it in by 11 in the morning.
They're talking about building stories in days in advance where copy can keep. If we go down that model, then we go from being a true newspaper to a free suburban newspaper. The thing is, you need that flexibility.
Under the News Now system, journalists at the Herald will also be expected to write 6 stories a day, plus headlines and captions, and take their own photographs, putting a massive strain on staff that remain. This has been the case at the Border Mail for the last 2 months, and according to one senior reporter who's now left, morale there is terrible, and readers hate it too.
The impact on the paper has just been shocking. I'm sick and tired of people coming up to me in the street and saying they're cancelling their subscription. It's just a real shame.
At the Ballarat Courier, another big Fairfax regional where News Now was introduced 3 months ago, there are similar warnings about how it's all working.
Morale is low, the quality is falling fast, and there's less time for investigative journalism and feature pieces. It's not just older journalists who are leaving the company through the redundancy process. Talented young reporters are leaving as well.
The same fate is feared at the Newcastle Herald. But Fairfax told mediawatch that despite all the cuts, the paper will continue to gather the gongs.
There's no reason to believe our capacity for investigative journalism is diminished at the Newcastle Herald. We expect and are absolutely confident that our staff in Newcastle will continue to produce award-winning journalism.
Frankly, we doubt it, to put it mildly. But in any case, union negotiators say Fairfax is not interested in debating the issue.
They've made it clear that arguments around quality are not going to be listened to.
The Newcastle Herald is still making money, but Fairfax says revenue has halved in the last 7 years. So cuts of some sort are clearly unavoidable. And they'll also be felt on papers like the Maitland Mercury, which will go from 5 to 3 days a week, and the Singleton Argus, which will become a weekly. But one journalist at the Herald who didn't want to be named told mediawatch that Fairfax managers are not really to blame.
We can bitch and moan about the quality issues, but there needs to be a message sent out to the community that unless they understand that quality news costs money and is worth paying for, then it's going to be lost. And it won't be because Fairfax is evil and doesn't care about quality, but because quality simply costs money.
So, does the public care enough to pay for it? And is quality what we really want? To judge by the stories that got Australians excited last week, the answer is no. Most people are far more interested in fairy tales, like this one on YouTube, that can be picked up for free.
I met this really cute guy, and for me, it was love at first sight, and we had a beautiful night. And on the next morning, I flew home to Paris, and I lost my phone with his number on it. So I have no way to contact him, and 6 weeks later, I found out that I am pregnant.
Ah, yes. Now that is a story. And who could resist that Cinderella's plea to find her prince? Not many in the media, that's for sure.
A lovesick French tourist has flown to Australia to find the man of her dreams.
And a French tourist has returned to Australia in the hope of tracking down the tall, blonde bloke she shared a romantic night with 12 weeks ago. And who is, she says, her baby daddy.
That sentimental story went viral across Australia. And it spread like wildfire around the world as well. Meanwhile, the YouTube video has been viewed some 3 million times. But alas, it was all a hoax, as Natalie, whose real name is Alizée, soon revealed.
I found him.
She did, but there's a little twist. This has been a viral video for Holiday Mooloolaba. My name is Andy Seller, and I own a company called Sunny Coast Social Media, and we do viral videos for businesses.
Yes, it was all a marketing stunt, which allowed the media to run the story a second time and declare it was all a fraud. And after that, they could shame the perpetrators to get yet another day's news out of the story. So, was it easy to dupe the world? Answer, yes.
I just got the URL of the YouTube video and posted it on different news sites, on Facebook and community pages, and they lifted it from there. One of the papers picked it up, I can't remember which one. The minute one picked it up, they all jumped on it.
One in, all in. The media mob in action. And did anyone check if Natalie's remarkable story was true? Well, 1 or 2 tried, but most obeyed the modern media dictum, which is file first, ask questions later. And it's a bit like that with this one too, which also had everyone talking.
Support is pouring in for a Sydney mum and her son who were ridiculed at a Book Week celebration because the little boy was dressed as his favourite Disney character, who just so happens to be Elsa from Frozen. Timmy, should these people just let it go?
Tell us what you think. Perfect chat show fodder. But how that little boy in Elsa dress-up got to be a story is much more interesting. And it's a cautionary tale for anyone who uses Facebook, because it shows how what you share with a few can become a story for everyone, whether you like it or not. Which is what happened to the boy's mother, who posted this rant about her son's childcare centre to a Facebook mothers group.
This morning our son chose his beloved Elsa dress over a Spider-Man costume. He was so happy. Upon arrival at the centre, staff repeatedly said to me that I was mean and that he would be teased. These comments not only caused me to doubt my decision, but upset our eldest son who had come in to drop him off.
Other mums shared their empathy. But by then, a journalist had also been sent the post. And within hours, it was making news here and in the UK, thanks to the Daily Mail Online.
They told me I was mean and he would be teased.
Mum, who brought her son, to daycare dressed as Elsa from Frozen, was asked to take the frock off him because he would be bullied by other children.
The Daily Mail nicked it all, complete with a screenshot of the original post and a picture of the little boy with his face blurred. Much to the horror of the mother, who wants to remain anonymous, but who told mediawatch,
I'm just incredibly stupefied and dumbfounded that this has blown out like this. The fact that it was just taken without my permission upsets me. This group has a whole bunch of women who get on there and openly discuss their parenting and relationships in what should be a safe space. It terrifies me that someone is trawling this and looking for clickbait.
So how did it happen? The Facebook group is closed, which means to join you have to be approved by an administrator. But with around 12,000 members, it is hardly private. So what are the rules? Well, with no formal right to privacy in Australia, Professor Mark Pearson says it comes down to journalistic ethics.
The normal approach would be for the journalist to contact the people involved and ask them to speak on the record about the matter.
Good luck with that. And to their credit, the Daily Telegraph did ask the mother if it could run the story and dropped it when told the answer was no. The Daily Mail also asked, but ran it anyway when it got no reply. And it then refused to take the story down when the mother asked them to do so. We asked them why, and they told us,
We considered it to be in the public interest. We took great care ahead of publication not to include identifying information. The story provoked wide debate among our readers.
So, is it just a matter of ethics? Sydney University's Fiona Martin thinks not. She told mediawatch,
The woman whose photo and post was published could launch a rights case against them. The legal position is that it is her copyright.
Now that could be interesting. And what are the lessons in the meantime? Well, simple, really. Don't rely on the Daily Mail to behave ethically. And don't expect your rants to remain private. You wouldn't stand on a street corner and shout out your secrets. So don't do it on Facebook either, especially with 12,000 of your closest friends. And you can read more about all tonight's stories on our very public Facebook page or our website, where you can get a transcript and download the programme. You can also catch up with us on iView and contact me or mediawatch on Twitter. But for now, until next week, that's all from us. Goodbye.